Hello, I'm Miranda Kahn.
And I'm John Bachman. Coming up today on Newsmax Now, new revelations about how much the FBI actually knew about the men who attacked that Mohammed cartoon contest in Texas. Plus, ISIS has a new warning about their soldiers in our country.
And a tree crashes down with two little kids right in the impact zone. And a Newsmax exclusive with the widow of American sniper Chris Kyle, what she shared with our very own Ed Berliner. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Newsmax Now. It's May 6th.
It's good to have everybody with us. Let's go ahead and get started. One of the two men who attacked that cartoon exhibit in Texas apparently left a long trail of clues online. Counter-terror officials are now taking a harder look at the Twitter exchanges of Elton Simpson. He apparently regularly traded calls for violence with members of ISIS as well as enemies of Pamela Geller, who organized that contest. Attorney General Loretta Lynch says the investigation is still ongoing.
We certainly are investigating all aspects of that case, including all affiliations of the shooters.
Well, the New York Times says the FBI had been watching Simpson for a while, since 2006, but an official says it didn't appear that he was getting ready for violence. That official says there are so many like Simpson that you have to prioritize. Speaking to Newsmax, TAYA, widow of American sniper Chris Kyle, says many more attacks are being thwarted.
Most people who are dealing in that world know that it's always a threat and that the American public is very, very fortunate to be ignorant to a lot of things that are stopped and thwarted every day in this country, let alone around the world.
Well, Taya says her husband would have not been surprised by the attack, but he would have wanted to help stop them. More from her in a moment.
Charlie Hebdo, the French newspaper also attacked for its drawings of the Prophet Muhammad, received a special recognition in New York. The PEN American Center honored the paper with its Freedom of Expression Courage Award. It happened at a gala under heavy security. One of the newest presidential candidates that you see right here says it's time to take on the GOP establishment. In a recent Newsmax TV interview, Dr. Ben Carson revealed what's been his biggest challenge, so far.
Not so much the left-wing media attempting to stop me, but the torpedoes that come from the right. That probably has surprised me.
But he says the nice thing is that all he has to do is tell the truth and stick to the right principles. Dr. Carson has his work cut out for him, though, especially in Iowa. A new Quinnipiac poll shows Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker leading the race there so far. It's very early. Senators Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, along with newly announced candidate Mike Huckabee, are all within a couple of points of each other. Dr. Carson gets 7%, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush just 5%, and former HP CEO Carly Fiorina at 2%.
On the Democratic side of the race, Hillary Clinton is drawing a distinction between herself and Republicans on immigration reform.
We can't wait any longer for a path to full and equal citizenship. Now, this is where I differ with everybody on the Republican side.
Hillary was speaking at a school in Nevada. She calls some GOP proposals on immigration a path towards second-class status. And come check this out. Two boys are hurt after a tree fell on them in a park. This was early this week in a Massachusetts town called Chelsea. Witnesses say they heard cracking and snapping just before that tree fell over. A 2-year-old boy is now being treated for a fractured skull. An 8-year-old was left with cuts. He also needed staples in his head.
Oh, poor things. The mayor of Baltimore is now asking the Justice Department to investigate her city's police department. This comes as one of the officers arrested in the death of Freddie Gray now says Gray's arrest was in fact legal. The city's top prosecutor called the arrest of Gray illegal, as you may recall, saying the knife he was caught with didn't break the law. Gray suffered a deadly spinal injury during a ride in a police van after being arrested. Ferries are going to start running soon between Florida and Cuba. This is what the last ferry looked like back in 1960. Now, several companies, including Havana Ferry Partners in Fort Lauderdale and Baja Ferries in Miami, have been given licenses to begin running again. The companies say they could begin in just a few weeks.
All right, joining us now on set is Ed Berliner. Good to have you with us, Ed.
Good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
All right, so two big interviews last night on your programs, on the show there. First, let's talk about TAYA Kyle, an interview about her book, American Wife. Let's take a listen to one of those clips.
Okay.
I think that everybody will get a little bit of something different depending on what they relate to. But when you talk about it, it's love, war, faith, and renewal. And I think as human beings, we're all going through those types of situations throughout our lifetime, not once, not twice, but multiple times, trying to find that balance. You know, they will definitely see a different side to Chris, the side that I saw and absolutely love and adore. And they'll see, you know, the marriage through different eyes, but they'll also see grief, support, friendship, renewal, faith, raising children. It's all in there.
All right. Well, people just cannot get enough of the story. TAYA Kyle and her husband, late Chris Kyle. What else are we going to hear from her tonight?
Well, I think we need to focus a little bit on what she said there, and what we tried to do was talk about the book, because let's be very honest, most people have seen the movie, we've read American Sniper, we know about Chris Kyle from that side, but it's the emotional side of things. It's the families that are left home, whether they're husbands, wives, kids, whatever, and what they have to put up with. I think that's what TAYA was really trying to do with this book, was to paint a very different picture of Chris that people don't normally see. It would be that very emotional, close picture. Yeah, and also I believe what she was trying to do was, and she even said this to us, was to make it a little bit easier, maybe bring some sort of understanding to the people who are left home, the families that are there and what they have to put up with. Have you both seen the movie? Or
yes,
have you?
and she's
I
done
actually
so much.
have not. I have not seen the movie.
You really do?
No.
That story, the
but I
movie-
am friends with one of my best friends. Her husband happens to be an Army Ranger, and so I hear she shares a lot of her concerns.
That's
with
what it
me.
is. It's what happens to the people who are left home. And by the way, there was the last question of the interview. I'm not going to tell you, but I asked her one question, and you could see her step back for a moment on this.
Really?
I don't think it's been asked before. And she stepped back a little bit and thought about it, but she's spending time with American Wife now and traveling the country and pushing the book. I haven't had a chance to read it. I've seen pieces of it. I am dying to read it and just get a little bit more into the Chris Kyle mythos, if you will.
Coincidentally, you also had Jesse Ventura on your show last night. Again, this was just a coincidence. Folks know there's a lawsuit, a legal issue between the Kyles and Ventura. You chose not to talk about that, so hats off to you. But there was also some interesting things that Ventura said about prison reform in this country.
Well, I mean, Jesse's one of those guys who believes that, first of all, marijuana needs to be as legal as possible everywhere. He does agree with people that we need to get the prisons emptied out, not emptied out and cleaned out, but he says, take the lesser offenders out. Stop putting them in prison all the time. Right. The interesting thing about Jesse is he now has a new show where he's pushing himself as off the grid.
Yeah.
He's actually in Mexico somewhere enjoying the sunshine at this point. Everybody knows it. It's not anything that we're revealing here. But he says no cell phones, no nothing. He says, I'm going to go off the grid. He's very big on drones. He hates the idea that America's using drones to, according to him, spy on their own citizens.
Well, there's some concern about that. There was a report about drones over the city of Baltimore recently. That's raised some eyebrows. But let's take a listen also to what Ventura had to say about incarceration in this country.
Okay.
You got to look at some big numbers, and what's embarrassing to me, Ed, is that the United States now has more people in prison than any country in the world. Now, we have a saying that's in our country called home of the brave, land of the free. Well, how can we say that if we have more people in prison than even more than China?
Yeah, and that's where China always throws back in our faces when we try to get after them for human rights violations. And Jesse Ventura, some folks would consider him a fringe-type person, but this is not a fringe issue. This is an issue that Rand Paul's talked about, Cory Booker's talked about in the U.S. Senate.
He seems so different than the way he was like years ago. He looks
Jesse
different. He sounds
seems different?
Yeah, I mean,
What
just
tapes are
everything
you watching?
Everything about. No, I mean, if you were just to go way back, I mean,
and he did get elected governor of Minnesota.
Well, if you're going back when he's called the body, I mean, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah,
He still has it. He's very passionate about this country. He's very passionate about these issues, about freedom as well. And again, there's a question if anybody wants to know about whether or not Jesse Ventura is going to run for president in 2016, if he still has political aspirations, again, wait for the interview. See, there's that wonderful thing in tease.
Yes.
You are very good at this.
You have to do that. It's just to remind everybody, it's on the show is brand new here at the Newsmax Network. It's called The Hard Line, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Make sure you join us there, and of course, it's always online as well.
And it's great to check it out. And so far, tremendous achievement on the show.
So far, we're rocking and rolling.
Congratulations.
Don't worry about it. I'll get you a copy of American Sniper.
Okay.
I'll let you borrow mine.
Okay. All right, coming up, GOP presidential hopeful, Carly Fiorina appears to have already lost one race.